This video is to show you how to write pseudocode for the inventory project. First, I'm going to talk about what's the class definition that I'll be using for this inventory project. Then I'm going to look at the input file that is going to be read to provide class members. Then I'm going to do the pseudocode. So let's start with that and then we'll refine it from there. So this inventory project is going to require me to create a class, and I want to define what are the member fields of this class. So the project that I'm going to select is a fly fishing rod inventory. And a fly fishing rod is defined by several things. I'm going to have a string for the manufacturer. I'm going to have a string for the type of fly rod it is. I'm going to have an integer for the weight. And let's have an integer for the length in inches. Okay, so that's an example of an item. You're going to need to have an item that has at least 3 things in here and things that you can filter on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have an input file that has a whole bunch of these items. So let's put a header on here first. Manufacturer, and then type, and then weight, and then length. Okay, so Sage is a manufacturer. Let's do let's just call it a standard. Let's have a weight be a 5 weight, and the length be 9 foot, which is 9 times 12 is 108 inches. Okay, let's also create a Sage spay rod, weight 9, and let's make this 11 feet. So what is that in inches? 12 times 11 be 132, I believe. Let's have another manufacturer of TFO, standard 8 weight with another 9 foot. Let's have what's another good manual? Let's call it an Orvis. Standard rod of 4 weight. Let's make this an 8 footer. So 8 to 12, 96 inches. And let's see. That's enough to start. So that's a sample of what the input file is going to look like. Okay. So this input file is going to be read into these classes here. Let's see if no, Notepad's not smart enough to let me do indents. So we've got the class definition, we've got an input file. So now let's talk about the pseudocode. So I'm going to have pseudocode, and I'm going to create a main method. I want main to be as simple as possible. So I'm going to have a method to read the file. Let's call it read file. And let's have a method to, let's see, I'm thinking I can do this. I'm not sure if I can do this or not. I'm going to call it filter inventory, and then print inventory. I'm not going to put parameters yet, but that's my first cut at what main will be. So read file. So the purpose of read file will be, and this file should be a text file. So I'm not really generating code. So I'm not going to even try to put it as a comment. I'm just going to say that this is the purpose of read file will be to read the inventory file into an array of rods. Okay, let's call this class rod. So read file is going to open the file, create the scanner. It's going to have a while loop, while next line exists. We're going to have a we're going to read the manufacturer. Type, weight, length into rod. Okay, and then it's going to return an array of rods. Okay, so already we can start filling in a few of these details here. So this is going to be it's going to return a rod, which needs to be capitalized because it's a class, rod array read file. And read file is going to take a string, the file name. Okay. And we need to do filter inventory. Okay, so filter inventory is going to prompt the user for how to filter the inventory. My current thought, I'm not 100% sure if this is going to work, is to return a rod. Return a rod with exact match. So what I'm thinking I can do is I can ask it, have the user say, how do you want to filter? And so I could say manufacturer, type, weight, or length. And then based on that, I can ask for whatever the value of the field is. So I can filter on a manufacturer, Sage. And then it'll go through and it'll return a rod item with that filled in. And then filter based on that. Now I'm also thinking that'll be easy. Since manufacturer and type are strings, I can fill those in. Since weight and length are integers, I'll have to put like a negative number or something in there to know that that's not what I'm filtering on. We'll think about that a little bit more. But let's proceed with this idea for now. Filter inventory. So filtering an inventory is going to prompt user for the field to filter on. And then I'm going to create a scanner on system.in. I'm going to get the string for the field. And then we can switch on the field. And then for manufacturer and for type, I can prompt user for the user for a name, or for weight and length, I can prompt the user for an int. And then I'm going to create, actually we probably need to indent this one more. Create a rod with that name. And here I'm going to create a rod with that value. and then I'm going to return the rod. Okay, so I know that here it's going to return a rod, single rod, filter inventory, and there's no inputs as far as I can tell. All right, and then print inventory. So the purpose of print inventory is to print out all the rods which match the filter characteristics. Print inventory. Okay. I was just thinking I could filter on a single criteria, or I could filter on multiple criteria by filling in more than one of those fields. Interesting. Let's start with filtering a single category, and then I'll think more about whether I want to filter by multiple categories or not. So print inventory, it's going to have to take a rod filter and for each rod in the inventory, I'm just thinking, where is the inventory? Do I have to pass in the inventory? I think I do. So let's pass in, accept in as well, a rod. Let's just call it filter. Inventory and filter. For each rod in the inventory, if rod matches filter, print the rod. And that's pretty much it. Okay. So that is pseudocode. So why is this helpful? Okay, so you can see as I went through here that this kind of works out how the data is going to flow. It as an instructor tells me what is this thing going to do. Okay, it tells me what it's going to do. It tells me have you thought out what methods you're going to put in here? Have you thought out what the overall structure of the program is? So I see, as an instructor, I see, okay, you're going to read it, you're going to filter it, you're going to print it. And I can read the details about what does reading the file consist of? What does it return? Okay, what does it take? Filtering the inventory, I can see what it does. I can see, okay, it's going to return a rod. And I can see how is this rod going to be built up. And then print inventory, I can see exactly the structure here. So this is phase one. So for phase one, I want you to turn in pseudocode that looks like this. Try to follow all the rules in the pseudocode video. Things like you really shouldn't have more than 7 words. If it's more than 7 words, you should probably have it in multiple lines. So for example, here, I could break that up. Here's the other one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Now it's 9. Print out all the rods which match the filter. Okay, that's pretty close to 7. As little code as possible. So here in main, this looks very code-like. And I really did need to put these parentheses around here to be clear that that's actually a method. Okay. But most of this you can see is just English. And again, the reason why I want you to put it in English and not code is you could have a bug in your code. Okay, so I don't want you to list code and it could be a bug in it, and I can't tell what the intent is. Okay, so whenever possible, use English so I can tell the intent. Right, create a rod with that value. If on the other hand you said new rod and you passed in a couple parameters and those parameters were wrong, well then I'm not going to be quite as sure as to what you're doing rather than saying this here. Okay, so turn this in as a text file, no code. I want to see a class definition for what the fields are. I want to see what the file is going to look like for the input. I want to look at the pseudocode. Oh, and see, here's another good reason why you want to do pseudocode. So I'm looking at this input file and I realized, oh yeah, there's actually the first line. The first line has this these headers. Okay, I didn't take that into account. So create the scanner. So I'm going to have one line where read the headers and probably discard, because at the moment I don't think that I need to know what the headers are. If this were handling a generic inventory, then I would have to look at the headers and understand them. But it's not. I know exactly what the headers are for. I just wanted that header there so that it would be easy to write the file. So I'm going to read the headers and discard. All right, so that's phase one for the pseudocode.